So again, thank you all for joining the call today. I am Dr. Quintina Timmel, and I serve as the Chief of Staff and Operations for the Department of Education. Joining me today is Danielle Mitchell, our Deputy Chief of Staff, and Hunter Brown, our Operational Quality Executive Director. You will hear from them later in the call. First, I want to take a few minutes just to acknowledge the great work that you all as educators and leaders have led over the past year, doing everything to ensure learning continued for our students in the most challenging circumstances and in the safest environments possible. So again, I say thank you. Our hats off to you for just a job well done. We find ourselves tested once more with Hurricane Ida. With this test, we have seen school systems across our states support each other. We've had instances of school systems getting together and making sure that those most impacted school systems had materials, water, supplies, and just being just an arm of support. So again, we say we appreciate the resiliency that's been demonstrated. And it is with that same spirit that we know that Louisiana will do what we have to do to come back together for our kids. As we move on to a vision of success, I start with a greeting, Kasidi Ngeta, which translates to how are the children? This is a traditional greeting passed between Maasai warriors in Africa. This everyday greeting shows the high value that they place on their children's well-being in this society as a reflection of the well-being of the entire society. Even warriors without children, and I love this part, of their own, use this greeting. When life is good, warriors respond, all the children are well. So today, this concept provides a perfect backdrop to some exciting work taking place in Louisiana. For many years, we've said Louisiana believes. So at the start of this year, the department released Believe to Achieve, our educational priorities. The priorities plan serve as the department's roadmap to improving outcomes for all children. Believe to Achieve includes the department's belief statements, state data to help track progress towards our 6 critical goals, and the new priorities that will direct our efforts as we work toward achieving the critical goals. Each priority outlines focus areas for key actions and initiatives. As a part of developing our vision for success, it was crucial that we really ask ourselves, again, what do we believe? Out of numerous conversations with you, with various stakeholders, even internally, we landed on 8 belief statements that serve as our compass for everything we do. These 8 belief statements anchor our vision, representing what we believe as a state. Our belief statements serve us and it defines what we believe. They are not ordered in any priority, with the exception, starting with children are our highest priority. As you read through our belief statements, here you see the things that we value most. And lastly, we believe that our future is bright and together we will achieve. I've referenced the 6 critical goals in our educational priorities. We are driven by a mission and a moral imperative centered on getting the best outcomes for all kids who call Louisiana home. It is our vision that every child can reach their potential no matter where they come from, how much money their family makes, or where they live. And so with this, you see our 6 critical goals, which simply say that our students enter kindergarten ready, they exit 3rd grade reading on grade level and ready for 4th grade. Our 8th graders are ready for success in high school, that our graduates graduate on time with college credit or career credential and eligible for Louisiana scholarships. Together, this work will help us reach those critical goals as we look at each one of our educational priorities. As we move into school year 21-22, we are committed to putting our beliefs in action by defining our why, our values, and our commitments. And so what you see on the slide is how we represent ourselves to you. We see ourselves working with you alongside of the work that you all are doing that is most important for students. One of the things that we constantly check and ask ourselves as we think about work and how we support you all is what was our experience in the school system, and what we're delivering to you all. What will your experience be as you try to do this work? So many times we work closely with you from a service orientation. We value the relationships we have with you. We want to be responsible to you, and we want to operate in a very authentic and transparent way. So this is our commitment, not only to you all, but to all of our stakeholders. And you have our beliefs in action. So now we will move to what you all have joined this call for specifically, and that's the launch of our 22-23 school system planning. At this time, I will turn it over to Danielle Mitchell to walk you through our process.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Timmel, and thank you everyone for joining. We are excited to be here today, 1 year removed from where we were last year, but still treading through some challenging times and coming out even stronger. So right now we're going to talk through the 2022-2023 school system planning, the process, and some of the elements that are involved. So if you've been a part of the school system planning process in prior years, some of this is going to be very familiar. Each year, our school systems and lead agencies plan for how to improve student learning in the upcoming year. This process involves reviewing student achievement and progress data, establishing those priorities, and building a budget aligned to the priorities using all available funding sources, and then implementing the plan with support. While there are many aspects of the school system planning process that are similar to what's been done in previous years, there are a few notable differences. Stakeholder input and feedback was an essential part of revamping this process to ensure that we are supporting strategic, priorities-based planning and budgeting for all of our students, birth through graduation. Additionally, the influx of new resources have given Louisiana an unprecedented opportunity to invest in our students and educators so that we come out of this pandemic better than ever. Therefore, the school system planning process is designed to help our school systems think about and plan for multiple funding sources to create a coherent, strategic, priorities-based plan. So what's new in school system planning? While there are, again, many aspects that are similar to what's been done in previous years, there are a few notable differences. So first, in previous years, school system planning has largely been centered around schools with intervention labels. That's our CIR, our UIR-A, our UIR-D. And this has left limited opportunity for our school systems to really plan for and even request funding for system-wide initiative implementation. But now with the inclusion of multiple funding sources, our school systems will have the opportunity to scale initiatives and plan really for all schools. Secondly, there was a limited inclusion of meaningful early childhood in prior iterations of school system planning, guidance, and applications. Now, we are really embedding and standing up our early childhood education work as not only an integral part, but really a cohesive and required essential part of the school system planning process. Third, the Super App was a central application that really facilitated that school system planning. However, there were numerous applications that housed various different funds and initiatives outside of the school system planning guidance. Now, we are developing a more cohesive and connected school system planning guidance and planning process. Fourth, because most of the federal funds require our school systems to implement evidence-based activities or initiatives, the department has developed a system to vet and identify high-quality partners. Although these vendor guides meet most of the needs of our school systems, we recognize that, just like our students, our school systems are unique. So we have heard from our school systems and we have created an alternate evidence-based option for our school systems to indicate potential partnerships that may better suit their needs. And then lastly, historically, the department has released preliminary ESSA allocations in December, requiring our school systems to budget those funds while simultaneously submitting requests for competitive funds. After receiving feedback from a cross-sector of school system stakeholders, we will now wait to load those amounts of the ESSA allocations until after the competitive funds have been awarded, so that school systems will then only have to submit a completed Super App budget once. So the school system planning process this year is made up mainly of 3 main applications, and you see those listed here: Achieve, Believe, and Super App. School systems will create a plan and budget resources to meet all of the needs of their students in these 3 main EGMS applications. We'll cover more on each of these applications in the upcoming sections. As we mentioned previously, school systems will now have the opportunity to submit a request to implement an alternate evidence-based option for multiple initiatives. This is in alignment with Section 8101 of ESEA and how it defines our evidence-based activities and/or initiatives. So this form is going to be available in EGMS as school systems are completing their applications. And it is pretty much as simple as downloading the form, identifying the question and the priority that the school system is requesting to have an alternative evidence-based option, and then simply loading that form. Our internal program offices will then use that form and evaluate not only the request from the school system, but also the data. They will connect with that school system to really understand whether or not that is the best choice for that school system and help them make sure that they're meeting the unique needs that they have. So now we're looking at an excerpt of the timeline. There is a master timeline that is in the school system planning guide that takes you through the complete process of all 3 applications and every step in between. But we're highlighting here just some key dates for you all to keep in mind. The Achieve incentive questions that are being released today are due October 7th. What isn't listed here, but is on the mind of many, is the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan that is due September 30th. The difference between these 2 is what's due September 30th is the Achieve budget for the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 formula funds, and the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan, which is reflective of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 formula funds. The incentive questions will be answered in its own application, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, so that it doesn't impede on school systems building out their budgets in the Achieve budget application. So school systems will be able to look at those questions today for round 1 and submit those by October 7th. Then we will have a round 2 released in November at the same time that Super App is released. And then those will be due in December. and Super App will be due in February, and the Believe application budgets are due for the early childhood and lead agencies also in February. To support our school systems with the planning process, there are 4 main resources that will be used. The first is the School System Planning Guide, and it's going to be used by our LEAs and lead agencies to really plan and budget resources to meet all the needs of students. The second resource is the School System Planning Framework and Funding Guidance. And this will be used by our school systems to identify their priorities for student improvement. The third resource is the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan. And this is going to be used by LEAs to describe their plans for addressing the academic and well-being needs of students, including those caused by COVID-19, to meet state, federal requirements for ESSER formula funds. And if you haven't had the opportunity yet to attend one of the support calls for academic recovery and acceleration, there is a recording, or there is the slide presentation as well as the plan and guidance document available on the Louisiana Believes website. The last resource is the Strategic Planning and Budgeting Workbook. This is a tool that school systems can use to plan and prepare for the submission not only of Achieve incentive applications, but also Super App. So we've created a resource that school systems can use to really braid and merge those funds to see how they can have coherent planning. Later on, Hunter Brown will actually do a preview of the workbook to walk you all through that. So now we're going to look at the 2022-2023 school system planning applications. The first one is Achieve, and many of you are familiar with Achieve. Achieve is the application specifically for the ESSER funds, and those were given to our states through 3 stimulus packages passed by Congress. Our ESSER 1 funds were disseminated through the Strong Start application. Our school systems are still spending those dollars down, and we encourage them to spend those dollars down before the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars because of the period of availability. The ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars are in an application called Achieve. It is really important to remember that these are one-time funds that must be used to prepare for and respond to the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. Our school systems should consider multi-year plans and therefore multi-year budgets. The completion of Achieve and the Academic Recovery and Acceleration Plan together fulfill the state and federal requirements for those ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds and incentive formula funds and incentive grants administered by the department. All Achieve funds, both formula and incentive, will be budgeted in that Achieve grant management application. So in order to receive the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 incentive funding, our school systems will respond to planning questions in the Achieve incentive application. It is important to note that questions are going to be answered in 2 rounds. And that is because we have to, as the SEA, allocate the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars to our LEAs by a certain timeline. So you will see today, most of or all of the initiatives that are going to be a part of round 1 are funded through ESSER 2 dollars, and the ones that are going to come out in round 2 will be largely ESSER 3 dollars. The Achieve Incentive Planning Round 1 application is live now in EGMS in the 2021 application area. And school systems must provide responses to these questions by Thursday, October 7th for funding, which will be allocated at the December BESI meeting. The application currently contains 17 round 1 questions. Now we're looking at just some of the key initiatives that you will see available to you all in the Achieve Incentive Planning. The department turned to our community to help determine how we should prioritize our state's set-aside portion of ESSER funds. As a state, we received more than $4 billion in the stimulus funding for ESSER. And that is a once-in-a-lifetime investment. So we continue to honor our commitment as a feedback-rich administration. Using this feedback, we developed a multi-year strategic plan aimed at really creating opportunities to close the learning gaps that have been created by the pandemic. What you'll see are bolded items on this list. These are actually areas where school systems will have the ability to either select from a predefined list of high quality options, and those would be found in Appendix A, or they could elect to upload an alternate evidence-based option form. Now moving on to Believe. This is our early childhood lead agency's space to really plan and budget for the stimulus funding with prioritized activities that address not only our early childhood care and education at a systematic and impactful level for both expansion and enhancement. So the funding that will be used to support our early childhood community networks as they develop their plans and support our families to ensure that child care centers in their communities are stabilized and provide children with high quality learning experiences. We encourage all of you who either have lead agencies or are lead agencies to please attend the weekly webinars that will be held by the early childhood team. Please direct any questions around the Believe application to earlychildhood@la.gov. And then the third main grants application, last but certainly not least, the one we're all familiar with, is Super App. So Super App, as most of you know, it allows our school systems to build a birth through graduation plan and secure funding for the core components of school improvement. This is largely funded with ESSA dollars. And so the completion of Super App fulfills the federal requirement for each school system's ESSA plan and for competitive grants administered by the department. The school system planning guide contains the current information on the CIR and UIR and Super App content, which school systems will use to begin formulating their plans for the 2022-2023 school year. However, there will be several updates to that school system planning guide, which are still being finalized prior to the November release of Super App. Therefore, it will be updated in November to provide final CIR and UIR Super App content. As a reminder, Achieve Round 2 incentive will also be released in November, really allowing our school systems to request additional funding at the same time. And again, in terms of developing and implementing a cohesive birth through graduation plan. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Hunter Brown to share more about resources and support.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to quickly walk you through the strategic planning and budgeting workbook that the department has developed to assist school systems as they plan for the submission of both the Achieve incentive applications as well as Super App. All of these resources that you're seeing today, either linked here or this deck and the recording as well, can all be accessed on the department's school improvement library on our Louisiana Believes website. I see several of you have already found the link. So in this workbook, there's some things that will look familiar and there are some things that are new. For that reason, we have included an instructions tab, which is the page I'm showing right now, that explains a little bit about the purpose of each tab that you'll find, as well as some tips and pointers for using this file. One thing that I wanted to flag right up front is that when you access this workbook for the first time, it will be a view-only file. In order to begin using the file, folks will need to make a copy to a Google account locally, and then share it with other team members to begin collaborating within this space. And so to do that, you just click File, make a copy. And once you make a copy, that will become a Google Doc for your personal use. One new thing that we have added this year is the ability to create a budget across multiple school years, both for existing funds as well as anticipated funding requests. And for those of you who work regularly in EGMS, you will notice that a lot of the columns that you find in your EGMS budgets are reflected here, and that is intentional. So to use this, it's very straightforward. You will simply select a funding source. First, a funding source that you have on hand, and we have tried to include all of the funding sources that folks may have received in the past for competitive funds through Super App, or federal funds that you would always have on hand. Object code, priority and focus area, a description like you find in EGMS to describe in detail what the item is, and then spaces to identify how much of your existing funds you're planning to use towards this particular item, as well as any anticipated funding requests. This is an optional space, so school systems can use this at their discretion. But one feature that I think will be helpful is that all of the information that is input on this strategic planning budget tab rolls up into the analysis tab automatically to display information broken down by priority buckets or individual focus areas or object codes. The next 5 tabs will look familiar for those of you who have participated in the school system planning process with Super App in previous years. This is the workbook space that we have had in the past. The main notable difference this year is that last year we had the 4 domains: core academics, students with diverse needs, workforce talent, and LEA systems. We have transitioned all of our Super App items and Achieve items to our new priorities under the Believe to Achieve document. And so you'll see that that is the main difference from previous years. The other notable difference, of course, is that we have included Achieve items in the workbook as well, so that you, again, can create a cohesive birth through graduation plan in one space as opposed to separate spaces. We've identified in column A a flag for each question and the application that you'll find it in. So you can see these are for Achieve Round 1, rolls straight into Super App items, and you'll find the same as you navigate through each one of the tabs. Again, every question that you see here is mocked up to mirror exactly the way that you'll find it in the actual application once you go into EGMS to begin entering your responses. Again, this is an optional planning tool to use at your discretion if it's helpful to have a collaborative space for everyone at your school system to help plan together. You will also see in here spaces or questions where the alternate evidence-based option is available. When you select that, this will also happen in EGMS. You'll be prompted to upload the form that is linked here. It's the same form that Daniel showed earlier in the presentation. The final space is also a space that you have seen before if you've used this workbook in previous years. This is just a space for school systems to plan out their Title I set-aside funds and also plan for the areas within Super App where they might invest these various federal funds that you would receive. Finally, I want to cover some of the areas of support that LDOE is offering to school systems as they navigate the planning process. So first up, I mentioned it before, the School Improvement Library is the place where all of these resources are currently live, and we'll post the recording of this webinar later today. The LDOE weekly newsletters, which is likely the space where most of you found out about this launch event. We will continue to provide resources as well as information there. You will also receive updates on school system leader calls, as well as our federal support and grantee relations calls. And finally, we are standing up, as we've done in the past, planning office hours. These office hours will cover all three of the applications that we've discussed today: Achieve, Believe, and Super App. Typically, these happen on Fridays, and we have scheduled the next 3 weeks as school systems get into Achieve incentive planning. We have an office hours available each Friday at 10 a.m. moving forward. The first one will be next Friday at 10 a.m. We've included the webinar information here. It'll also be in the newsletter, and the same link will be used each time for the next 3 weeks as we, again, support Achieve incentive planning. Finally, we have the LDOE Grants Help Desk email address. If you have questions about completing these applications or planning for these applications, please email the Grants Help Desk and include the application name and the subject line as applicable. I'll now turn it back over to Dr. Timmel to close us out.
Thanks, Danielle and Hunter, for going through the details and the very technical aspects of our Super App planning process. We appreciate the thoroughness. The few things that I do want to just reiterate about some of the resources that you all saw provided here, specifically the workbook. Please know that the workbook is optional. It is not mandated. It is not required that you use it. It is optional. The other thing that I would like to convey is we know that you've received a lot of content today and a lot of dates. The process has changed based on what you've been accustomed to. And what we will say about that is that we spent several months communicating, sitting with stakeholders to get feedback as to how we can make a more comprehensive process for all of the funds that you have coming into your system. So through much vetting, through much communication with federal programs, directors, with other system leaders, chief financial officers, business managers, we got in the room a couple of times and we said, look at, all the dates, all the requirements that we have, and how can we make this more amenable for school systems? So the process that you heard us talk through today was really developed with you in mind, but also by you all giving us feedback. And so I just want to make you aware that we didn't just sit here and come up with ways to simplify based on our own experiences. We did work with other system leaders to make this process as comprehensive and hopefully simplified for you all as possible. So just wanted to make you aware of that. The other thing that I will say is in the coming weeks, you will see that we will collect interest from school systems in having a guided planning experience with your teams, and we'll set up those opportunities through the fall. So we know that, again, the process has changed somewhat, and you all may need one-on-one guided sessions to help you work through all of the dates and all of the requirements and all of the applications we've released today. You will have an opportunity to get those individual set up opportunities throughout the fall. We will put something out. Be sure to look at the LDOE weekly newsletters for that information, and you will have an opportunity to sign up for such for one-to-one consulting sessions. The other thing that was posted in the chat that you may not have seen already is we released the deck or the link for the deck in the chat. So you all may want to take a few minutes now and copy that link so that you will have access to this deck after the call ends. And then if you have any questions, you can definitely add questions to the chat. We'll stay on for a few more minutes just to see if there are any questions that we can respond to at the conclusion of the meeting. And the last thing that I will say at this time is thank you so much for all that you're doing for kids. Keep doing great things for kids. And thank you for your service and all that you do every day. And we have one more link that's been posted in the chat. We actually have the school system planning guide that's been posted in the chat. So you may want to take a few minutes just to copy those links and make sure that you have access to them at the conclusion after this call is ended. So I will pause now just to see if there are any questions that anyone would like added to the chat. Please include your email address so that we can respond to those questions directly. We'll pause just for a few minutes to see if there are questions that's been added to the chat.
Thanks so much, Dr. Timmel. There were actually a couple of questions that have been sent to the host of the call. So we're going to read those and answer those. The first one is, what flexibilities will LDOE be giving on deadlines to schools impacted by Hurricane Ida? That is a great question, and one that we are very empathetic to, especially right now, knowing that about a dozen of our parishes are really reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. We are actually compiling a comprehensive list of any extensions, deadline extensions, cancellations, as well as deadlines that we don't have any flexibility to extend due to them being either federal or state law based. So that will be coming out in next Tuesday's newsletter. The one deadline that I know is going to be extended, and I believe that it's been posted on our website, was the Ready to Achieve plan that was actually due today. School systems will have an additional week to get that in. And again, just to clarify, that's the reopening plan, not associated necessarily with the academic recovery and acceleration plan. So that information will be provided in the newsletter. There is another question around timeline for fund delivery. The ESSER 2 formula funds and ESSER 3 formula funds, that the remaining 50% of ESSER 2 and the remaining 80% of ESSER 3 were actually loaded earlier in August. And so school systems should see those in EGMS. If for some reason you do not see those in EGMS, please reach out to LDOE Grants Help Desk at la.gov. The ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 formula funds, we released all of them rather than holding them back so that our school systems could plan, and that is also what's going to be reflected in the academic recovery and acceleration plan. There's another question about, are the incentive questions only in EGMS, or can I find a PDF version of them so that I can discuss with my team? You can absolutely find a PDF version of them, and they are included in the school system planning guide document. The document has the Appendix A, which is at the end, and there's a column that specifies the exact application for those questions. And there's another one, are we required to allocate money in all areas of the academic and recovery plan? The short answer is no, because we know that potentially school systems are investing dollars in areas outside of that plan. So that plan is really a reflection of those 6 areas, how the school system is investing their ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 formula dollars, in those 6 areas. So we don't expect for all school systems total sum of what's reflected in that plan to equal their total allocations. Yes, and Dr. Q just put in there LDOE grants help desk at la.gov to ask questions about those formula funds. And please include the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding in the subject line. And I believe right now, Dr. Timmel, those are all the questions that I'm able to see. I don't know if there are any others that have been sent as direct questions, but what we will do is take all of these questions and make sure that we codify them, have answers to them, and provide an FAQ on the website. Please submit any questions that you have throughout the process to LDOE Grants Help Desk at la.gov so that we can capture those, provide an answer, and then provide that to all of you as a helpful resource in completing the plans.
Thank you, Danielle. I do want to acknowledge that we have many of our LDOE team members on the call. And so just as another arm of support or in-reach or outreach opportunity to you all, please know that in the development of the slide deck that you all view today, as well as the school system planning guide, that many of our LDOE leaders actually spent many hours working on that school system planning guide. So if you have questions that's specific to areas, specific to curriculum, specific to special ed, specific to technology, you can reach out to those supports, educator development, leadership development. You can reach out to the people that you know that you've worked closely with in specific offices. And so just want to first acknowledge that we have many of our Louisiana Department of Education leaders on the call today, as well as they have been an integral part of developing the resources that you now have access to in the school system planning guide. So they are also great resources for you to consult with as you begin digging through and putting your plans together. So the last slide that we reviewed was our school system support opportunities. I just want to reiterate for you all ways in which you can get support and help. That information is listed for you on this slide. Please know that our first office hours will be Friday, September 17th, 10 a.m. The link is included on this slide. What we know from experience about this work is you will have more questions when you start digging in, start answering the questions, start planning the money aligned to your strategic plans. So knowing that, we want to make sure that you know where you can go and get support or the people that you can reach out to as you start your planning process. So it is 9:45. We will end the call, but we do want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here, spending this time with us, and ask that you take a minute, just a breather, to enjoy this weekend after a very long week of recovery efforts in some places and support efforts in others. So again, thank you for joining the call, and you all have a great weekend.